Let's do this. All right, what's up, World Wrestling Live, Wrestling Nation? Man, I got an awesome guest today, another amazing wrestler and wrestling mind in our country. He is Jude Swisher, co-host and founder of Home Mat Advantage and the Sam and Swisher Show. He's a PA state placer out of Belafonte High School, and he and his partner Sam were named 2020 Win Magazine Journalist of the Year. And he's here with us today. Super dope kid. Can't wait to talk to him. What's up, Jude, man? Thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate that.
Hey, Dan, I am doing so good. I'm really excited to be on here. I've wanted to be on here for a while. Finally, we got in on that schedule, and now we're finally here. So this is really exciting. And I want to.
Yeah, and I was when I saw you sign up. I'm not gonna lie, I had some little butterflies in my stomach. All right, man.
Oh, man.
I get half of the dream team on,
Yeah, the dynamic duo.
Yeah, it's pretty
fantastic.
Cool. We got to get Sam on one day, maybe.
Yeah, I'll now, dude. Between Jacob and I, we're gonna be like, pestering him. We're like, sign up, do it, get on the show.
Yeah, it's been fun, and I can't wait. We got your guy Jacob coming on later. He was on 2 weeks ago or something, but with wrestling coming soon, he's done his ACC rankings through Home Mat Advantage. He does his fantasy through Home Mat Advantage, and he'll be on later to kind of give us his secrets to what he thinks is going to happen in the ACC today. So that'll be dope, and I'm sure Home Mat Advantage will post that all around. You guys will see it later on, but man, really cool to have you again. Thank you so much. So first of all, COVID in Pennsylvania. I know that you train out of M2.
Sir.
At what point were you kind of able to kind of get out of the house and start your off season? And how has COVID kind of affected your plans this off season, other than doing more podcasts?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the bright side. I had a lot of time to pump out a lot of content over quarantine, so that was the good thing. Well, I guess it really started at at the state tournament. It was that Wednesday. It was my birthday. We went up to Hershey, weighed in, wrestled Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And like you saw on the internet a little bit, you saw the memes. People are kind of talking about this COVID-19 thing, but it wasn't a big deal. Like, I felt very blindsided by the whole thing, and it felt like in 3 days, basically, so that whatever the next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, bam, all of Pennsylvania shut down, all of New York, all of New Jersey, everything's blasted. So it's 1 week from the time I compete at the state tournament to everything's done. And it blindsided me, actually. And I was, there was a lot of buildup for the state tournament. I really, I believed with every little particle in my body, I believed I was going to be a state champ, and didn't quite achieve that goal. But I was like, all right, it's off season, time to get back in the room. And off season is my 100% my favorite time, just because no pressure, a lot of time to slow down and be like really like intimate with your technique and like really understand it all the way through. So I was like excited. I was like, we got freestyle coming up. We got Fargo, the whole shebang. And then bam, it's all gone. Like, it was 1 week of training. And then that Friday, it was just everything's gone. But here's the thing, like, to my understanding, like, our governor only had shut us down for 2 weeks. He's like, it's just going to be 2 weeks. And so I thought it was just a 2-week break. So I was grateful. I was like, you know what? It's been a long season. It's good to take a break. And here's something, Dan, is I rarely ever take breaks, because my motto when it comes to wrestling is life will give you breaks. Life will, whether it's a snowstorm, or it's so you get sick or something like that, you have family come in town, there will be opportunities to not wrestle. There will be things that you can't get out of that are just going to take, any opportunities you have to be on the mat away from you. So if the mat's open, I want to go on it, because I know that life will happen and I won't get to. So I was grateful. I was like, 2 weeks off. I get to heal my body, stretch out, relax, and unwind after just a long season. Like, the Pennsylvania wrestling season is long, right? You have duels 2 times a week. You have a tournament on the weekends, and every week you're wrestling, high level kids. And so you really stay on edge for that whole, 3-4 month period. But then, 2 weeks, and then the governor said, we're extending it 3 weeks. And then he extended it another 3 weeks. So in total, it was about 5 or 6 weeks. But that doesn't sound about right. No, it was in total like 2 months of being inside, and being trapped. But here's the kicker. Here's the good thing. We got 3 free mats the Thursday before everything was shut down. So like maybe 3 days before the whole state goes kablooey, I got mats in my wrestling mats in my basement. And so I actually stayed on the mat the entire time through quarantine. I was wrestling every day. Don't tell anybody. All right. But I had kids.
Nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening. Between you and me, I had kids come over. I got my hands on any state medalist, any state qualifier, any kid who wanted to train within an hour and a half radius. And I said, hey, I got mats in my basement. I can get you partners. Come and wrestle at my house. And I mean, I had a lot of really good kids over, a lot of, high level Pennsylvania guys, and even kids that I didn't know. Like my dad would just go through the state bracket and, he's like, oh, Jude, this kid's from Chestnut Ridge. That's an hour and a half from here. He's like, go DM him on Instagram. And so I just sent him a DM. I was like, hey man, Jude Swisher, congratulations on your season. Want to come over and wrestle sometime? And, a week later, he's pulling up to my house. We're shaking hands, and then we're going downstairs and scrapping.
That's how, well, you can appreciate this with your podcast. That's how I started getting people. I'd sit up at night and I would type in wrestlers. And if they didn't have a mask and a painted face, I knew they were. So I said, okay, not WWE, not NWA. So and I would just hit people up like that. And so I could imagine, well, that's awesome. So I got to imagine it's gotten your little brother, the 13-year-old better, right? Or 12-year-old.
Yeah. So I have a little brother. His name's Ezra. He just turned 13. We stayed on the mat during quarantine. And here's the thing about Ezra. I don't want to talk about him too much because this show's about me. All right.
Yeah.
All right. But, he doesn't like wrestling very much. He doesn't love it. He doesn't have that, that desire to get better. He doesn't have the desire to go on the mat. But he is very good. His technique is phenomenal. He's strong and he's, relatively athletic. Like we're us Swishers, bad genetics, bad. We got nothing.
He's one of those kids that just have that. Like, don't those kids upset you? Like they walk into the room and they can wrestle or they can shoot basketball. They can go
right.
And you've never done this before, and they're just kicking your ass.
Yeah, and dude, and I love him to death. But I'd love him a lot more if he loved wrestling. Just saying. But so what they did over quarantine is that M2. So that's David Taylor, Mark McKnight, Eric Thompson, who I believe you had on the show prior. Yeah. They started doing like live streaming Zoom practices. So you get on Zoom Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. Monday and Tuesday, it would be technique. And so it would be shadow wrestling and you're working on drills. And if you had a partner, you could do it with a partner or anything like that. And I mean, there's like 150 kids watching this Zoom call, right? And we're just watching David and Mark and all them,
wasn't that with they did some stuff with Young Guns too.
Yeah, well, no, so they were actually separate. Young Guns also had a Zoom. They also had a Zoom classes and things like that. They did theirs a little more frequently, huh?
With Strip Matter, right?
Yes. So to my understanding, they were going like 5 or 6 days a week. M2 was only doing 3. They would do 2 technique days, and then like a circuit on Thursdays. And that was fantastic. It was like nothing else because, the nights I didn't have a partner, like I really had to be focused. I really had to work on my footwork, right? I had to understand the technique and understand how it applies to having a partner. And so I stayed on the mat all through quarantine. And then sometime like mid-June, we got the okay to open back up the gym. And practices started right back up without really a hitch. The only thing is like we're not allowed to switch partners. So you get one partner the whole practice. There's only allowed to be one coach the whole time, and you have to wear a mask. Not while you wrestle, but the coach has to wear a mask. So that's been interesting. And I also, I help out at the M2 like youth. So they have senior level practices and youth practices. And I was invited to go be like a I guess you can call it a volunteer coach
Nice.
for the youth practices. And that has been extremely helpful. It's one thing to do the technique and talk about it. It's another thing to try to teach someone. So that's also really helped me.
Yeah, I saw somebody down here. Um, I saw when he was like picking up his kid from the airport, and it was like he was like 11 weeks at M2. He's back, and I think the kid's like in 6th grade or 7th grade. So I think
Yeah. Oh, it might be what's his face?
his dad's a coach up in like by the villages and stuff.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's cool. It's really cool. And then you have a relationship with these kids, and they're only a couple years younger than me, so they're like, anywhere from the age of 7 to the age of 12. But it's like another little brother, and like I want them to be just as successful as I want my own brother to be, and I want my own brother to beat them all, but I also want him to get his butt kicked too. And so it's cool for me to teach and build relationships, and like I recognize that. I love to coach. I love to be with people. And I know that someday I want to do, whether it's a club or high school or even collegiate coaching, I believe that's in my future. So this is a cool opportunity for me, not only to expand my own wrestling, but to, give back to the club, give back to the kids, and grow the sport of wrestling a little bit.
And those little kids need someone like you to look up to and say, I want to be like him. So,
Right.
and follow you and see how you're doing. And I noticed that a lot when we first started going out to wrestling rooms and clubs, and the younger kids meet these older kids, and then they start watching them and they start following them on track, and they start looking at them where they're going.
Right. And what's cool is that I'm doing the same things they're doing, right? I'm in the room, 5 days a week too. And just because, it doesn't matter that my practice schedule is a little different time, I'm still doing the M2 system, right? And I'm going out and competing and trying to implement it in every match I wrestle. So these kids can look up to me. And the other thing about that is that when I was a kid, when I was that young, I was very blessed to have older high school kids come back to the room and give back to me. So they would show an interest in me specifically. They would treat me with respect. And as a little guy, like as a 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, and you're having high school kids come and tell you, hey, you're doing awesome. You got something. You can run with it. You can be great. It is the greatest feeling in the world, to like have someone older than you see you as a peer, see you as someone to, give respect to. It makes you feel like $1 million. And I want to be that kind of, influence on the next generation of wrestlers. I want to show that respect to those kids. So, because I know how great it made me feel.
And that's awesome, man. And good for you for doing that. And then obviously with your show, Home Mat Advantage, you have a platform too now where if there's things that need to be said, people that need to be heard, movements that are going on in the sport, you're able to also influence there too, which is awesome to be. Your partner is your same age?
Sam he's just 2 years younger than me, actually. So he just turned 14. I just turned 16. So yeah, about 2 years younger than me.
And by the way, Sam is a 7-time Tennessee state champion.
Yeah, he's a savant. He's a savant on the mat. Off the mat, he is the smartest kid. The smartest kid I've ever met. Incredible. Like every single day I talk to him and I like hang up the phone and I'm like, oh, why is he so talented? I don't understand. Like it's not balanced, right? I kind of like, I do my best effort, just to try to keep up with him. And he can put in like, a half butt effort and like just blow me out of the water. The way his brain works, it's so analytical. It's so incredible to watch. And like, from my experience, like Sam Herring is just a phenom, on the mat, off the mat, great kid.
That's awesome. And remember these two names, Sam and Jude, you're going to see them. Speaking of that, so tell us how you met Sam, how you started HMA, maybe some of the best moments you've had so far, best interviews, things like that. Give us some stories.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. It all started back in September of 2018. So I joined Twitter for Flow Wrestling Radio Live. They do their daily show, and what they do is they take questions from on Twitter. So they say, hey, send in your questions, we'll answer them on the air. And I'd listened to FRL all that summer, and I was like, Dad, can I make a Twitter so that I can, ask a question and get on the air? And how cool would that be? Because I idolize these guys, right? I'd listen to them daily, and I would be like, man, what if I could meet them? What if I could talk to them? What if I could interact with them? So I make a Twitter. I give it like a joke name. It was called Mike Uzzin, right? So Mike and then Uzin. And so hopefully I was like, and then they'll announce my question. They'll be like, my cousin asks, and I don't know. I was just trying to be silly or goofy or whatever. I was 13. And so I was on Twitter. I would be on there pretty frequently. And then I noticed that there was this kid, because I knew he was a kid, I could tell, but he would tweet all the time during the day, like from whatever, 9 o'clock in the morning, all the way to 9 o'clock at night. He would continually tweet. And that was weird because I was homeschooled and I was on Twitter when I wasn't really supposed to be. I was supposed to be doing my school, but I would see this kid tweet. And so I was like,
Mom and Dad, you didn't hear that.
Mom. But I was like, I don't really know what his deal is. Why is he tweeting all the time? So I slid into his DMs, right? I say, hey, I'm Jude Swisher. I'm 14 years old. I'm homeschooled. Are you a kid? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, are you homeschooled? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, sick. Me too. And then we just hit it off, so much in common. Everything from we're both in big families. I have 5 brothers and sisters. He has 6. To our faith, we're both, very invested in our relationship with Jesus Christ. We also have, we're homeschooled. We both did the same homeschool curriculum. We wrestle all the time. Like the numbers of similarities are outstanding, like ridiculous. And like a lot of people are skeptical of like relationships built over the internet. But I can guarantee you, like my relationship with Sam Herring, I live in State College, Pennsylvania. He lives in Tennessee. We've only met each other in person twice, but I can guarantee you we will be friends for the rest of our lives because just the relationship that we have and how we built it is so special and it's so unique that, I mean, it can't be replicated.
Didn't I just see you two together?
Yeah, so he came up over the weekend actually, and that was the first time he ever got to come to my house. That was the first time we recorded in person. It was very special. But so we're DMing almost every single day on Twitter. We talk about wrestling, we talk about life. Then he goes to the Southern Scuffle, which is it's probably an hour trip for him, and he meets the Flow Wrestling guys, and just by chance, they let him start calling matches. So he's a 13-year-old kid, a 12-year-old kid getting behind the mic, and he's calling matches at the Southern Scuffle. And he's doing it good. He's doing it really good. And all of a sudden, he's blowing up on Twitter. He gets 1,000 followers in a day. Everyone's like, who is the kid on Mat 6 who's calling the matches? And he knows everything. Like he starts blowing up. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sam, you're ridiculous, dude. You're crazy. And ever since then, he started to get this huge media following. And so a couple months passed, we continued talking, and I was like, just as a joke, I was like, hey, Sam, what if we had a podcast? And he's like, haha, funny. And then a week later, he sends me a link to create your own podcast free, anchor.fm. And I was like,
hey, that's what I use Anchor as well. Shout out to
fantastic,
Anchor.
right?
I love it. Just put it right there, then it shoots it.
Boom.
Yeah.
Extremely efficient. And I was like, well, I guess we're doing this now. So I used my birthday money. I bought a cheap little mic. Sam used his AirPods. We picked a name. We got a logo, which was terrible. Logo sucked so bad. Because I made it by myself. I downloaded like a free logo, make your own logo app, and oh boy, it was awful.
Yeah, I use Canva.
Well, I'll keep that in mind.
Have you heard of Canva?
No, I have not.
Yeah, you can. I use it on my phone and I use it on online. So they have a free version, and then they have like a pro version, which it's not that expensive. But that's kind of how I mess with my stuff.
Yeah, well, your setup looks fantastic already. Like I just have like this wall,
Yeah, I
there's
had
like
that.
paint swaths on the
Yeah, listen, go to my first 150 shows or whatever it was. All rocks. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then I
it's
finally bought this green screen, and then here we are.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so we started it up.
we started it up. I call him for the first time. We record a 6-minute episode, and it was among the worst things I've ever produced in my entire life. It was just so atrocious, so terrible. It's deleted. It's long gone. You can't find it. Don't try looking, please. And like, it was horrible. It was so bad. And we were like, this is the introductory episode. This is what home advantage is all about. It sucked. Like, needless to say, horrible. We've come a long way. But then, it was fun though. It was fun to like get the computer set up and the microphone and the headphones, and you go in your closet and you hide under the blanket so you can have good audio. And the next week, so that week, it was right before the NCAA tournament. The next week we have the NCAAs, and then we recap it. We do our first ever episode 1, recapping the NCAA tournament. And I was really concerned with like time. I was like, people don't want to listen to 2 kids for an hour. We got to keep this thing short, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, maybe. And we're talking. And of course, like, it's the NCAA tournament. There's so much to talk about. And I was like, Sam, can we just stick to the finals? Horrible move, bad move. Because we just kept talking about the finals. We're 23 minutes in, and I'm like having a panic attack because I'm like, this thing is going too long. And Sam's like, all right, we're here at 285 pounds. We're here, talking about Anthony Cassar. He comes into the NCAA tournament, and I was like, and stop, no more. We're done. Pulling the plug on the podcast. We'll talk about it next week. Like, it was such a dumb move. And like, looking back, I'm like kicking myself because like
when I first started these, I was told the same thing. Try to keep it 15 to 20 minutes. Try to keep it 20 minutes. But there is no way.
No. Like, you just got to keep talking about wrestling because it's fun. It's fun to talk about wrestling. So, our episodes got, a little bit longer each time, a little bit better each time. And man, it was a special thing. Like, we just kept getting a little bit better. And like, with the mentality of, I like talking about wrestling. I like talking about it with my friends. I don't really care who listens. I don't care if they think we're good or not, but we're going to put out the best product that we can and just keep getting better. That was our mentality. We recognize it's a process. We recognize that a 14-year-old kid and a 12-year-old kid shouldn't be able to make a podcast, right? That's not something you do. Here we are, a year and a half later, we've interviewed the best wrestlers on the planet. We've interviewed, off the top of my head, David Taylor, Kyle Snyder, Jordan Burroughs, Bryce Meredith, Yanni, everybody. Like, I'll pull up the list, but like everyone from coaches to, high schoolers and NCAA champions to NCAA, low All-Americans, like, but the top minds in the sport. And it's been fantastic, honestly, and how far we've come. But yeah, you had asked me like what interviews like really stuck out to me.
Yeah, like some of your favorite moments, favorite people. Being a kid wrestling at M2, I'm sure you've bumped in just by mistake to the greatest in the world. But
so
as far as the podcast, are there people that because of the podcast you've had the advantage of getting to wrestle with them or getting to get taught by them or breaking down their mind for your wrestling career? How has that helped?
Yeah. Well, let's see. So to answer that question, I live in State College, Pennsylvania, home of the Nittany Lions. I wrestled at the NLWC, like youth practice all the way up through. There's Penn State wrestlers all over the place, national champions, like hotcakes, right? You go over and they're walking on the street. So I've had a lot of interactions with these people ever since I was a young kid. And have David Taylor as my coach also, it's a blessing like no other. Like to just understand the gravity of having a world champion. And not only that, like one of the most dominant wrestlers on the planet right? He 10-0'd Miles Martin in the first period. Like, that is outstanding. To have him take an interest in me and to like personally invest his time and his money in me is like earth shattering. It's ridiculous. But as for the interviews, the first ever interview we ever did was Dan Dennis, and I knew who he was. I knew he was Olympian, but I didn't really know all that much about him. So that week going up to him, I watched every match I could find. I watched the flow film on him. I read articles. I prepared hard for this interview. And so Sam and we get on the show with Dan Dennis, and and he had some news that he was going to wrestle Greco at the US Open or something like that. But I was so nervous that I was like bumping my knee on the table, and my microphone was shaking. I was so nervous, sweating, stuttering, all sorts of terrible radio stuff. And we blew it because we asked him shallow questions. We didn't do any follow-up questions. The interview was 20 minutes long, boring. The questions were who's your favorite wrestler? What's your favorite move? Why do you like wrestling? Bad, shallow level questions. But man, ever since that, we just kept getting guests and guests and guests and guests. A couple that stick out to me: Johnny DeJulius, fantastic guy. He's a skydiver. He's a wrestler. He's incredibly energetic and just a very charismatic person. And so that was the first interview we ever really opened up with our guest, because he has this way of bringing a level of personality into the conversation that doesn't make you think he's a robot,
Yeah, if I go back through my interviews so far, and you could appreciate this, now you're someone that does these, so you don't have short answers. You're very affluent. You talk. We're good. But a lot of the young kids, it'll be short answers. They're not used to doing interviews. So you're 15 minutes in, you're like, oh my God, I've asked all 5 questions already. Where do I go? Or you get a coach that's really hey, why do you do this at your club? Just because we think it'll make them better. Hey, go quicker. And then next thing you know, it's 15 minutes in, 20 minutes, you're like, oh, I have nothing else to say.
I've been there. I've gone through the whole list of questions. Check the clock. We're 20 minutes in. I'm like, so what did you think of the wrestling last weekend? You start spitballing and just try to get him to talk. But yeah, no, Johnny DeJulius, that interview went maybe 45 minutes, an hour, which at the time was long for me, because I was like, oh, no one's gonna listen to it. It's too long. And I was freaking out and whatever. Johnny DeJulius was great. The first ever solo interview I ever did was with Bryce Meredith. And the reason I did that was because Sam was going to record with him, but he couldn't make it for whatever reason. He's like, Jude, I already scheduled it. Do you think you can show up and take my place? And I was like, okay. I just peed myself just about, and got on the call with Bryce Meredith, and he was just fantastic, and really opened my eyes. And I will say this, I know I'm going on all these different tangents, but the coolest thing about doing these interviews with these high level guys, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, is to understand them as a person. It's not just about who is Brock Zackrell, the wrestler. It's who is Brock Zackrell, the human being. Who is he, the person? What is he like? What are his interests? What does he do in his off time? What does he do outside of wrestling? Things like this, to understand it. Because wrestlers, wrestling is a huge chunk of our lives, but it's not us. It's not our identity, right? My identity isn't wrestler. It's Jude Swisher, right? And there's 100 things that make me unique. So to go and talk to these people and understand them, a little more fundamentally, and not just, oh, I see you on the screen.
I can't believe special. That's something that's blown. Before doing the podcast, I only knew where my kid wrestled at the club, and then where he wrestled in high school. And I would see people in the room like the Rivera twins or Usakis or whatever, right? And they would just be crazy animals on the mat, and then off the mat they were laughing and having like just
Yeah, they're people, right?
awesome people you could talk to. And then going into this, I mean, I'm talking to people who I thought would never ever answer me back, would never even come on my show, would never even talk to me.
Yeah,
You
no, that's
get,
like,
you get this feeling that, you know, these people that spend their lives in cages and on mats and in rings, you have this perception that they're
yep.
just animals, these beasts, these people that stick their chest out, and even outside the mat in the ring, they're just gargantuans, right? And
Mhm.
but really, they have a switch inside the mat, inside the cage, inside the ring. That's between the lines, like a football player. That's on the court, like a bat. You know, that's where they do their business. But outside of it, they have kids, they have family, they have fun, they hang out. And I can't believe how people reach out to me and they say, "Man, I can't believe who you've had on the show. How'd you meet this guy? What were they like?" And I'm like, "Look, my hands were sweating when I had them on, but then I had them on, and I was like, yo, man, these dudes are like just like you and me." I mean, now I wouldn't want to meet any of them in a dark alley. They fuck me up. But as far as on here, it was super cool to hear people like this crazy fighter saying, "You know, I like the gardens over by Pitt. I love the flowers." And I'm like, "The hell's wrong with you?" Like,
No, a good example of that is Thomas Gilman, right? On the mat, he is like when the camera's on him, his persona is like bad guy through and through, mean. He'll punch you. He'll run up to your corner. He'll, you know, if you're riding double, I don't know if you knew this, but in college, I can't remember who he was wrestling. He might have been Alan Waters, but the kid had double boots in on him, right? And Gilman is, you know, like quad pod. And so he's holding on really tight. And Gilman stands up and jumps backwards on top of him, like, and just slams him. Like his heart, like, and he gives up a point or whatever because it was blatant. But he just did it because he was mad. And you're like, wow, this guy he's mean. Like,
yeah, but then afterwards you see him in the corner eating his ice cream.
Right, exactly.
Video games, like you're like, who's
but
that?
and like he's a philosophical guy. He's a deep thinker. He takes his time. He reads a lot. He wears these stupid little sandals and it has like a little dog and like goes on walks by the river. Like, wow, same person. And so coming full circle, that's the coolest thing for me. It's one thing to see a dude on, you know, on the big screen and you're like watching him at the NCAA tournament and you're like, oh, wow. And then you talk to him and they're just, you know, you get to know them as a person. And that's the biggest thing for.
And look, you're 16 and I'm 44, right?
Yeah.
We're kind of like on the same path, right? Well,
yeah.
You've got your whole life, but we're doing a lot of the same thing, right? And you're a wrestler, I'm not, so I don't even know what I'm talking about half the time. I have taken the time to go through and get certified as a coach and do all this stuff to kind of learn as I go. But to meet these guys has been, yeah, I mean, like you said, just incredible. Right. And then to be sitting there and watching TV one night or something, or watching my kid watch matches on Flow, and I'm like, huh, I talked to that guy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. My son's like, what? I'm like, yeah, I talked to that guy. But he's like, yeah, like you must feel, I couldn't imagine being your age doing what I'm doing and being like, oh my God, the guy just talked to us at the NCAAs. He's wrestling for third place. Wow.
It's unreal.
That episode's going to take off.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, man, it's special. And people ask me like, Jude, do you get nervous? Do you get nervous before you record? And if I'm going to be honest, and I know this sounds like the just stuck up, like stupid little white boy answer, but it's no, I don't get nervous anymore. Like I used to get like really nervous. But then you get past the name. You realize that they're not just a wrestler. You talk to them, you get to learn about them. And it's relaxing. And like you build a relationship with these guys. Like a lot of these guys, and Sam even more than me, but like we maintain a relationship outside of the podcast, you know? So I have these high level wrestlers on, and then I can text them afterwards, or I can give them a call and I can, you know, maintain a relationship. Not in like a flexy kind of like, oh yeah, I got XYZ wrestler in my phone. Like, oh, I'll give him a call right now. No,
I'm hitting up Spencer Lee.
Exactly. Stuff like that. but no, it's more than that. It's about having a relationship with these guys. It's about being trustworthy. And yeah, like it all comes down to relationships. It comes down to people. It comes down to, ideas and thoughts and communicating them. So.
And you know what? That's why, I mean, I spent 20 years in sales, training salespeople, coaching salespeople, also being a sales manager and doing my thing. So I have some of that, the people skills are there, but um, more than people know, I always get on earlier with people before we go live, just like you and I did, because the people coming on are typically more nervous than you are. Because they're thinking, oh my God, I haven't been on a show in a while, or who is this guy, or
Yeah.
What's he going to ask me? What are the questions that are going to come at me? Is he going to be intrusive with his questions? Is it just going to be fun? Is he going to talk about that time in 6th grade where I got a detention? Like, right? So
Yeah.
when I get on before the show, that's my chance to break the ice and be like, yo, look, I'm just some idiot doing a podcast. Don't worry.
Right.
I'm regular. Here's the questions I wrote down, but please remember it's about Jude Swisher. It's not about Dan Ward. Let's make sure these questions are what you want to do. And it's helped because then when we go live, that ice has already been broken, and people are kind of chilled out and relaxed, and we move forward. Now, you and I had already met because you invited me onto your show. So that was cool. So the ice had been broken. We messaged, like you were saying, and that's fun. And hopefully we can do things bigger than just being on each other's show. Maybe
Exactly.
I'd love to help, and if you could help me, that'd be great. Anybody that you can refer onto the show, man, I would totally appreciate that. Now, another question I had was, you guys have been putting in this work and now being wrestlers and having your goals of being on the top of the podium or just being on the podium at any level. Now that you guys are doing this podcast, and then you get recognized as Win Magazine Journalist of the Year, which I have down in the corner there. Did you guys see that coming? Did you guys have a heads up? First of all, holy shit, congratulations. But,
thank you.
How'd that go down, and what has it meant to you and Sam?
Oh boy. Okay. So we started the podcast in March of 2019. A full year later, April 2020, I'm doing school because I'm, a high school student, and I'm doing school on my computer because I'm a homeschool student. And I have to put my phone in a different room, right? If my phone's sitting next to me, I'm just going to be on it the whole time. Don't get anything done. So I put my phone in a different room, and during lunch, I went and grabbed it to, check up and see what's going on. And I had 2 missed calls from a number I didn't know and 3 missed calls from Sam Herring. I was like, okay, something's up. And I just, I check my text, and I get it's Mike Finn from Win Magazine. He said, hey, Jude, this is Mike Finn, Win Magazine. I'd love to give you a call sometime. When are you, can we call right now? And I was like, oh, sure. And so I gave him a call. I said, hey, Mr. Finn, this is Jude Swisher. And he says, hey, Jude, have you spoken with Sam today? And I was like, nope, what's up? He's like, and he starts giggling, and he's like, listen to this. Home Advantage has just won the Win Magazine Wrestling Journalist of the Year award. And I was like, what? I had no clue, no idea. We were super blindsided by it. And he, we sat down, did a little 30-minute interview, and he's like, all right, now don't tell anybody for a month. And I was like, what the heck? It was ridiculous. And like that. Oh my gosh. So
of course you hung up and told everybody.
Yeah. Well, I told my parents, I told some of my close friends, but, dude, it was like nothing else. So first of all, it was 11:30 in the morning, and I got a Flow shirt in the mail, a Flow Wrestling. So I was already super excited. I was like, ooh, my Flow shirt's here. And I was jumping up and down, and I check my phone, and it's Mike Finn. And I get on the phone with him, and I come up, and it's levels of euphoria I've never experienced. I've won matches at the state tournament, and I've, made the podium and all that, but getting that whole Flow shirt plus, Win Magazine Journalist of the Year, was nothing I've ever experienced. It was ridiculous.
Man, that's awesome.
And what was really cool about it is when you do these podcasts and you produce this content, you really don't know if people care, right? Like you kind of,
We
you're
talked
like,
about that before we got on the air, right?
exactly. It's like, it's almost like you're just shouting into the wind. You're like, maybe someone here, maybe someone doesn't. And, but this was the example of like, no, people are listening. People care. You're doing a good thing. Keep it up. In fact, you're doing it so good that you did it the best in wrestling media this year. Like, what? So like, we went and looked at like the list of people who have won the award, like Jeff Byers, who's the Penn State radio guy, guys at Flow Wrestling, Jason Bryant, the list goes on and on and on. And like, just to be numbered among those guys, it's like, it like makes me like tremble, like my hands like shake when I think about it. Just to,
So
I'm a
is
16-year-old kid with a podcast.
that poster framed in your room already?
It's funny. Here's the funny thing. I don't actually own that magazine because we don't have a Win magazine subscription. So if anyone has a spare one, would like to send it to me, DM me on Instagram. But no, just the whole thing that went down, and like Twitter and Instagram, we were just blowing the heck up because they're like, these kids did such a good job that they won this award. And now everyone's like, who are they? The people who don't know about us, they're coming to us. And for a time there, it was incredible. We got interviewed by several newspapers, and Win magazine, and we went on different shows and all sorts of stuff. And people like wanted to hear our story because it's
awesome.
It's something else. And I don't like talking about myself all that much. Like, I don't like talking about what great things we're doing at Home Advantage or anything like that. Cause I know what it sounds like. And it sounds like, wow, this stupid kid is so full of himself. And he, just because he wrestles at M2, that doesn't mean he's better than me or anything like that. But like,
yeah, well, bring it on.
It's all about exactly. But it's all about, it's a good practice for me and for Sam, like to remember, like, we got to stay humble. It's not all us. There's so many people that, go into this podcast.
But the lessons you've learned,
oh yeah,
last year and a half, from even the lessons I've learned in the last 4 months doing this, since April, maybe June, July, the last 4 months doing this, even at my age, how I've
lifelong
to be your age and Sam's age, and just be like wrestling geeks who decided to talk shit about it.
Yep.
But then you decided, well, I'm not going to be a hermit and keep it to myself. I'm going to learn how to tell people about it.
Right.
And then to get on and make mistakes and just totally suck and then be able to get better.
So bad. Dude.
Like my first ever episode was NATO, and I was terrible. I thought I was. And I mean, like, I watched the show and I was like, all right, buddy, you can come on anytime. When we go live, I'll let you know. Well, I was live already. I had no idea. Right? Stuff like that. And then he came back July 30th. He came back on, and it's a much better interview. I actually did a little bit of research because I've learned how to do that.
This
and,
time, yeah.
But for you to be able to learn how to open up and do public speaking at your age is phenomenal, because going forward, there's going to be so many opportunities for you. You're going to get your education. You're going to go off to college and do your thing. You're going to wrestle at the highest level because that's what you're going to do. But they're also going to be able to grab you and be like, yo, can you go talk for the team? Can you go do this for this? Because they're going to know, like, hey, we can utilize him for that stuff, and you're going to be comfortable doing it. You're going to have to be in front of cameras when you become a world champ and an Olympic athlete and all that stuff. And it's going to be nothing for you, right? Yeah, cool, I got this.
It is interesting. Like, it becomes comfortable. You become comfortable sitting behind the mic, and it's something that you never really expected to be comfortable at. And I've always been fairly articulate. Ever since I was a kid, I read a lot. I was able to really communicate my ideas, pretty well. But getting behind a mic and like recognizing like how to formulate your thoughts in a way that other people can understand them, it's extremely difficult. And so like, even like you're talking about lessons, but even the lesson of being able to take the thoughts you have in your head and put them through your mouth, like, it's a lot harder than you think it is, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Because like I've had podcasts where I just spit gibberish, like not even coherent.
And I couldn't imagine, because when I was your age, I had um, you know, I played basketball and football and tennis and soccer, whatever. I didn't wrestle, but I had, you know, like in the sport that I loved, I had athletes I looked up to. I could never imagine like having Dan Marino on my show or Hugh Green or Walter
Yeah.
Payton or Michael Jordan or, you know, these are the type level guys that you're having on your show with David Taylor and Bo Nickel and all these guys. It's unbelievable. So to be your age and be having an opportunity to talk to people you idolize are that's incredible. Because for me, I'm 44, so it's pretty cool to talk to this guy. But
Yeah.
but I'm doing it for a purpose because I want your sport to be known and I want
Mhm.
your sport to be seen. That look at the kids this sport is making. But I also want, you know, it's pretty cool when my kid, even though he won't talk to me because he's 14 and he won't watch my show now, but I know deep down he's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. My dad just talked to that dude. Like,
He'll
I
never
know
say
I'm
it, but
living
he does think it's cool.
vicariously through that, right?
He
So
does think it's
it's
cool.
pretty cool, man. So so your favorite moment in wrestling so far?
Oh, so my own personal wrestling or just wrestling in general or
Oh, it's there's no rules to this.
okay, well, I guess
However you want.
well, I mean, no, I'll say my favorite moment ever without a doubt is okay, well, I guess I have a couple. So all right, well, so I've been going to Penn State dual meet since could walk basically. So I grew up in we moved to Pennsylvania when I was like 5 or 6 years old. The year we moved, uh maybe the year after we moved, Kale got the job at Penn State. And that day, the day that dad heard that Kale got the job, because he wrestled through college and all that, he bought season tickets. He's like, we gotta see this. I gotta see what's happening. Because I mean, Kale just came off of Iowa State and he turned them into a powerhouse, right? So, you know, that whole like seeing Penn State, like the dominance of Kale, that 4 year stretch and then the year off and then another 4 years of like ridiculous numbers, and seeing that was always very special for me. Well, so a couple moments that stick out of my head. Man, Bo Nickel pinning Miles Martin in the NCAA finals. Isaiah Martinez getting inside trip by Vincenzo Joseph. Vincenzo as a freshman taking out Aymar, and then the next year inside tripping him again in the national finals. Like stuff like that is already crazy. But no, I would say, I will say this: I'm a Penn State fanboy because it's just where I live. But my favorite moment ever was David Taylor winning the world championships. He had already been my coach for a year or so, and like our relationship at that point wasn't something, it was coach athlete, but I think that's really where it was. And it was hard to like buy in, because he started it in 2018 in like maybe the fall of 2017 or so. And that following summer he goes and win the world championship. So I only really know him 8 months, 9 months, but like the relationship that we built in that time it was outstanding. And so to see him get that success and, do it in a very dominant fashion was just really special for me to see my coach go do that. And then, it means all the much more when he comes back and he says, Jude, you go do it. Right. Like, and he's giving me the tools to go be a world champion.
I mean, I saw the picture you sent me of
yeah
when you were like 8 or something.
I was 8 years old and he had come to our like youth wrestling banquet or something. And I got a picture with him. And now it's funny. I'm 8 years later, like, he coaches me every week and
eats lunch at your dinner table, right?
yeah, stuff like that. And I know how it sounds. It sounds like I'm spoiled. And
yeah, but listen,
admittedly, I am.
If you have the opportunity to live where you are, then why not take the opportunity to be trained by the best in your area? When I learned of the CFWA club, I knew that they're the club that feeds Lake Highland Prep. The Lake Highland Prep coach is there. It's known as one of the best clubs in the country.
Right.
It was in my backyard, and I found out what off season was, so I put him there.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And then they took it from there. He's got 2 great coaches at his high school, and then at the first academy, and then they took it from there. But if you're in State College and you can have the opportunity or afford the life that state college offers for a wrestler, hell yeah, take advantage of it. I mean, why
Right.
would, I mean, literally, I talk to Pennsylvania guys, whether it's on Pittsburgh or in Philly, you're like right dab in the middle, and they
Yep.
say, we can walk into a grocery store and there's a national champ picking up
Yep.
groceries. And
Yes.
we could walk up and be like, yo, you want to roll? Want to teach my kid? And they're like, yeah, no problem. I'm available at
Yep.
3.
Yeah, that's how it is.
And that's really, really, really cool. And yeah, you must pinch yourself every time you're like, wow, look what I'm doing, you know, and
It is special.
congratulations to be your age and be doing and accomplish what you're doing and then being as humble and awesome as you are. This is just a
I
second.
have a lot.
This
I
is
have,
just
I
the
have a long
second
way to
time
go.
we've
Dave.
met. Yeah.
I have a long way to go.
Yeah, but this is the second time we met, but it's been amazing. And then the people that are kind of coming around your circle, Mason Beckman, I see him on all the time. I had him on
Yep.
my show,
Great
and
kid.
Jacob Hughley, and then you see I was on. You guys invite me onto a show, and I come on and I look, and it's Seth Gross and
Jack Mueller.
and I'm like, holy shit, these are legends. I want
Yeah.
to show with these guys, right? And
Oh,
they're
boy.
just like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, we wrestled. Who cares?
Yeah, that's
Like
oh,
so
boy.
fucking cool. And I'm like, wow, sorry I used the F word, mom. But yeah.
Dude, it's fine. It is.
Like,
It's like nothing else.
dude, you're not allowed to talk to that man anymore. He curses.
Dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Give me your microphone. Give me your microphone. You're not doing anything ever again.
Done. Get back on your homeschool.
Oh,
Cool.
boy.
Well, I'm guessing that your favorite wrestler of all time is David Taylor. We
It
don't
certainly
have to
is.
question. I've learned that through this interview. All right. Are you ready for my 10 questions?
Okay. Lay them on me, dude.
All right. So Philly or Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh.
You like the single or the double?
Oh, single leg. Listen, I'll say this. I'm not athletic. All right. I can't do any like double legs from space. So it's all about getting my hands on them and making an angle and then getting that single leg.
Nice. All right. So Eagles or Steelers?
Don't care. I only wrestle. And so it's solely wrestling. I don't follow football or any other sport. So I will say neither.
So Penguins or Flyers?
Also neither.
Okay. So we'll change it to, let's see, burgers or wings?
I'm a huge burger guy. I really do love burgers. A whole lot.
All right. High C or hip toss?
Hi, C. Again, not athletic. If I get there, I'll do it. But more often than not, I'm just going to get to a good shot and finish quickly.
All right. So you're right dab in the middle. Do we go Philly cheesesteak or do we go Pittsburgh kielbasa?
Ooh, okay. That's a really tough one. I'm going to go with kielbasa, actually. My grandpa loves, like he loves to sample sausages and things like that. So I've grown up with a lot of kielbasa.
Good. Fireman's carry or ankle pick?
Ankle pick. My coach is David Taylor. All right.
Ankle pick. All
You'll
right.
kick me out if I say anything different.
2 Pennsylvania iconic items, the tasty cakes or the water ice?
Dude, water ice. All right.
Water. Do you get the bucket before winter?
No, I do not, but I would if I could.
My wife went to school in Philly, and I remember we were living up there, and they would shut the water ices down during the off season. So you go and you'd buy these big buckets to put in the freezer before they close down.
Yeah. Oh boy, it's awesome.
The cradle or the half?
It's a cradle. Cradle is a really high percentage technique, and I mean, like, you see it working at the highest level of every wrestling. Like even like at the World Championships, David Taylor can lock a cradle, and you can score in freestyle with it. And if you have like I have pretty long arms, like I got a wingspan, and so I can get a cradle locked up pretty tightly. So I'm a big cradle guy.
Nice. All right. Let's say since we got the hockey question out of there, let's switch it up with Lucky Charms or Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Dang. I'm gonna go with Lucky Charms, but I will say I don't eat that kind of cereal that often. Like especially during the wrestling season, I take my diet very seriously. So I
My
really
Lucky
don't.
Charms, do we eat the cereal first and then the
You
marshmallow?
pick out the marshmallows. Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah,
so
I
funny
got
story.
it.
So my grandmother once bought a thing of Lucky Charms, and it within a day it was only the cereal. No marshmallows were in it at all because we just sat and just ate them all out. Um,
It's
but
awesome.
I have a big sweet tooth actually. That's something a lot of people don't know about me. Love sweets, and I don't feel guilty about eating them either because during the season I have the best diet out of anyone I know. I take it very seriously. I eat a lot because I don't cut much weight, but I eat the right things. But out of the season, man, I'll eat ice cream, cake, drink soda, Lucky Charms, the whole shebang, all in one day. I don't feel bad, and then I just get a good night's sleep and wake up the next day. I'm ready to go. So,
Yeah, big buffet at the end of the season.
yes, sir.
All right,
Ooh,
last one.
okay.
Leg ride tilts or roll through tilts?
Roll through tilts. Roll through tilts are the way to go. Here's the funny thing. I have long legs. I'm a pretty lanky kid. I'm awful at legs, so bad. Like if I want to get reversed, I'll just throw in a boot, because it'll just put me to my back every time. So, but no, I like doing some cross wrist stuff and punching it through and going to a rebar tilt. That's kind of how I like to score my points on top.
Nice. Well, that's awesome, man. Hey, so first of all, just keep kicking ass in life, man, and doing your thing and doing big things and keep going with this, man. It's awesome. I'm so happy that I got to meet you guys and meet Jacob. We have another one of your home mat advantage guys on at 4 with Jacob. He's coming back to talk about the ACC wrestling, so that'll be fun. And man, it was just an absolute honor to get you on. So thank you so much. So happy to see a young man doing what you're doing. You've got another fan here. I'm going to be watching you on the wrestling mat and looking you up. And hopefully one day I can get my kid up there to train with you.
That would be fun.
That'd be really awesome.
And you have my number anytime you want me to come back on. I mean, like anytime. Like, please just give me a text.
He's always loved Penn State.
We'll get along well then.
Yeah, I just got him did you see those like Bo Nichols stickers or whatever that were going out?
Yep, yeah.
Whatever. So I grabbed them and he's got it on his computer.
Nice.
I was going to surprise him this year with the Penn State, Ohio State duel that happened in Penn State and for Christmas, but it was more expensive to the tickets than it was to fly him there. I was like,
oh boy.
I couldn't find like I couldn't believe it. I'm like, I'm looking up a wrestling match here, like not a football game, a wrestling match. And it was like $1,000, $2,500. I was like, holy moly.
Man, here's what you got to do. If you have the time, I would suggest go back to the 2018-2019 season. It's Ohio State versus Penn State. It's at Rec Hall. And here's why it's awesome. Ohio State had one of the toughest NCAA teams of the past 20 years. Like so good. So good. And the points that they scored at the NCAA tournament were they would have won countless NCAA championships. They were number 1 in the whole country. Penn State, who was a returning national champ, they were number 2. And I mean, Ohio State has Luke Pletcher and Joey McKenna and Kyle Snyder, who's already, Olympic champ at that point. And they all these guys, they come to Penn State and they're the favorites. Like they are going to win. Penn State beats them 17-16 in a packed gym. I'm telling you, it's January and it's like 95 degrees in that room. It's the craziest wrestling environment I've ever been in my entire life. And Penn State defeats their rival, the Buckeyes, and an insane duel. Like the first match, Penn State sends out the kid that they had wrestling for them. I think his name was Carson Kuhn, who he was a decent wrestler, and he's wrestling NATO. And the first minute goes by, and the Rec Hall is like kind of quiet, and all of a sudden Carson just hits a left-handed headlock out of nowhere. And NATO soars through the air, and his foot goes through like this advertisement sign, goes right through it, and it's an electrical sign. It just destroys the whole thing. And the crowd's like, they're freaking out. Everyone gets on their feet and they're losing their minds. And it was just nothing else I've ever seen. But the whole match.
A beast, right?
NATO is a beast. But dude, it came down to Bo Nickel was wrestling Miles Martin, who beat him in the NCAA finals the year prior. and got a last second tilt. Like there's 2 seconds left on the clock and the ref starts swiping and he gets a last second tilt to get the major. You know, if he didn't get the major, we would have lost, right? You have Anthony Cassar, who is the backup. They put him out against number 1 ranked Colin Moore and he gets the win. He beats the number 1 kid in the country and he was the backup, you know, and then he doesn't, you know, like it's just stuff like that. It's like ridiculous.
I bet you, I'm sure my son watched what you're talking about because
I suggest everyone listening needs to go watch it. And like, just to be there in that room, you walk out and you're like, it was the greatest duel of all time. It was the greatest duel of all time. That or the Penn State Iowa one that from this year. That wasn't as fun because Penn State lost, but you know how it goes.
Well, it's awesome, man. And this has been fantastic. Thank you so much. Come on anytime. I know I'll send you my cell through the Instagram feed. We've been messaging on, so we'll have each other. And anybody that you know that you can think of that would like to be on the show, please feel free. You know me. They could be your 10-year-old kid that you're coaching in your room. They could be a kid that you wrestle with in high school. They could be somebody that is whatever. If they have a wrestling story, I'd like to talk to them. And men, women, kids, adults, bring it on. I love it.
For sure. No, I'll start throwing you some names.
Yeah, man.
Excuse me, I got a little burp there.
Yeah, no worries. I get them all the time.
It was a pleasure to talk with you, Dan, and thank you so much. And you're doing a really great job over here. And it's my pleasure to just come on the show for a little bit and and just talk. And so
yeah, it's cool. And what's tomorrow? Friday. So usually on Saturday I'll rip the feed and I'll put it onto Anchor and I'll put it onto YouTube. When I do that, I'll send you the links.
Oh,
and then
sure.
do you want me to send you the hard copy of this video?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, I'd throw it up on Home Ad Advantage if you don't mind.
Wait, you can have it for your show.
Sounds great.
All right, I'll do it. I'll get it to you.
Awesome. Hey, I really appreciate it. I'll let you go now. I've talked your ear off for probably an hour.
That's okay. I love it. I don't have anyone till 4, so we could probably go for 2 or 3 more hours.
Awesome. No, I gotta go for lunch here pretty soon. But all right. Hey, I'll let you go. Thank you so much, Dan.
Yes, sir. See you, brother.